This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good morning, Rabbi Isai. Bruchim Abom. Agin Chodesh, Mishenichnas, Adar, Marbim, Besimcha. You know what? Once we're on the subject, let's talk about that. Mishenichnas, Adar, Marbim, Besimcha. I have a lot of possible Shiurim, but it's Rosh Chodesh Adar, so this is the one we got to do. The Gemara tells us, Masechta Tainis, so don't get worried, don't get nervous. We're not going to do more than 1.5 lines of Gemara. The Gemara tells us like this. Amar Rabbi Yehuda said, Brei de Rav Shmuel bar Shilas, the son of Rav Shmuel bar Shilas, Mishmei de Rav, in the name of Rav. Kishem shemishenichnas Av mematin besimcha. Just like when the month of Av comes in, we diminish Simcha. Kach mishenichnas Adar, so too when the month of Adar comes in, Marbin besimcha, we increase in Simcha. So actually, you don't even have to know the second half of the Gemara. We're going to focus on the first part. Very interestingly, we're going to do something a little out of the box today. We're going to focus on the Baal HaMemra. Who is the one who made this statement? Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Brei de Rav Shmuel bar Shilas, Mishmei de Rav. Who is that? Rabbi Yehuda, the son of Rav Shmuel bar Shilas, in the name of Rav. Why is he the one to make the statement, Mishenichnas Adar Marbim Besimcha? There are a lot of Amoraim out there. There are hundreds of Amoraim. Why Dafka this Amora? Of all the Amoraim, why Rabbi Yehuda, the son of Rav Shmuel bar Shilas? What kind of name is Shilas? That you're telling me when he at his bris they said Vikar Shema B'Yisrael Shilas? What was parents thinking? There's so many nice Jewish names. What in the world were his parents thinking? And then in the name of Rav, I have a question for you. In the name of Rav, Rav was the earliest of the Amoram. Rav Tanahu, Polig, and before Rav came along, what? Before Rav came along on Rosh Chodesh Adar, everybody walked around depressed because of the traffic on the Van Wyck. And Rav's Chiddush was Mishenichnas Adar Marbim B'Simcha. What did they do before Rav came along? Rosh Chodesh Adar was a bad day. We're going on. Adar's been around hundreds of years before Rav. All of a sudden, Rav woke up. Mishenichnas Adar Marbim B'Simcha. What was Rabbi Kiva? Rabbi Kiva argued on him. What about Rav Tarfon? What about Ram Gamliel? So you ask me, what kind of crazy questions are these? Since when do we start darshaning, who the Baal HaMemra is and what they do before this Baal HaMemra came along? Well, let me just give you an example of this. We have a Gemara Megillah on Daf Zayin Amud Beis. Amar Rava, Mechayev Inish, a man is obligated, a person is obligated, Levesume B'Puraya. I'll leave that up to your imagination. A man is obligated to be inebriated on Purim. Ad lo yada, until he doesn't know, bein or Haman lebarach Mordechai. Between his cursed is Haman and blessed is Mordechai. In other words, you got to get pretty tipsy, and it's not recommended. It's not a good thing. Chayev, person is obligated. Mechayev inishal besume. So there's a sefer of a great Mekubar of Ram Chizkuni, the author of the sefer Shtei Yados. It was published in Amsterdam in 1726. He wants to know, look, Rava is from the last of the Amoraim. Rava is a Basra. So how is it that all the Tanoim lived and passed on, and nobody said a word about drinking wine? And all the Amoraim lived and passed on, and nobody said a word about drinking wine. And all of a sudden, Rava comes to the scene, and he catches it. He's the very last Amora, and he says, by the way, let's just chop in one more halacha in the Gemara. Mechayev inish lebesumi v'raya ad lo yada. And until Rava, they drank apple juice on Purim. You would assume that this was always a halacha on Purim. Why doesn't Mordechai incorporate this in the Megillah? Why didn't he get that in? No, Mordechai doesn't say anything. It's not brought down in the Mishnayos and Megillah, and none of the early Amoram say a word about it. All of a sudden, we need to wait until the last of the Amoram, Rava, till we get to this teaching.
None of them killed anybody.
What? No, that's Rabbah.
Rabbah?
Yeah. That's Rabbah. Yeah. Don't mix up the one who killed and the one who drank the wine. Yeah. Okay. You know how you remember? Hey, Shmei Rabbah. If it's hey, his name is Rabbah. That's how you remember. Yeah. Okay. So, by the way, it's a good one. Yeah. I only give you good stuff. So, What's very interesting is that throughout Shas, whenever it comes to drinking wine, you could bet your bottom dollar it's Rava. Whenever you have a teaching about wine and Shas, Rava is usually the Baal HaMemra. For instance, there's a Gemara in Psachim on Daf Kov Zayin Amud Beis. The Gemara brings a Chiddush in the name of Rava, and it says like this: Rava havashasei chamra kule mala yoyme de Pesach. Rava would drink a lot of wine every Erev Pesach. Why? Ki heichi de nigure lelibe, so that it should draw his heart and whet his appetite. The neichel matzah tvei laorta, to be able to drink more wine in the evening. Rava was machadesh that drinking wine. I mean, who else would know other than Rava? Who else would know other than the one who said chayiv inish lebasume bepuraya adolayada? So he's saying taka, it makes you very hungry, and therefore it's recommended. And Rava himself personally drank a lot of wine erev Pesach in order to whet your appetite to be able to eat more matzah. I mean, what is Rava's obsession with wine? So this Makubal of Ram Cheskuni points out the two major Gemaras in Shas about wine. Both times the Baal HaMemra is Rava. One, Chai Venish Basume is Rava. Two, Rava drank wine Erev Pesach. So I'm thinking, you know what? I found a couple other Gemaras that talk about wine, and guess what? It's Rava. So for example, you don't have it on your sheet. There's a Gemara in Yuma, Daf Ayin Vav Amud Beis. Yayin Yisamach Levav Enosh. Omar Rava. Rava said, Yayin Yisamach Levav Enosh. Wine makes the heart glad. Zacha Mesamchai. If your Zoicha makes you happy, Loi Zacha Meshamamai. If you're not Zoicha, it destroys you. By the way, where else do we have Zacha Loi Zacha? Marriage. So wine and marriage is very similar in Rava's view, right? Zacha mesamchai. If your zoicha makes you happy, otherwise it destroys you. So it's a Gemara in Yuma, Daf Ayin Vav Amud Beis, about what? Yayin. Who's the Baal HaMemra? Rava. Yayin mesamach levav enosh. I found another one. Actually, somebody sent it to me once upon a time. Gemara in Sukkah, Daf Mem Tes. The Gemara says, Rava Amar Migma Ligma. You're talking about drinking wine in large quantities. Like, what's Rava's in AA, in Alcoholic Anonymous? Which Gemaras do they learn? They learn all the members of Rava. What's Rava's connection to Yayin? Here, every time we have a Gemara about wine, it's Rava. Says Rabbi Ram Cheskuni, half love a fella. The Arizal is Megala to us in the Sefer Pri Eitz Chaim that there was a man by the name of Lot. And Lot always, at the last moment, somebody rescues him. For example, he's about to be overturned in Sodom. He's about to be destroyed. All of a sudden, the Malach comes and yanks him out, and he's captured by the four kings. And Avram Avinu rescues him. How, in what zechus is Lot constantly being saved? So the Arizal says an amazing thing. Arizal says it was all in the zechus of the Amoira Rava. That the neshama of Rava was sort of hovering and connected to Lot. And the remez is Vayikchu es Lot ve'es Rechushay ben Achi Avram. Rechushay ben Achi is Rashi Tevois Rava. Somehow Rava's neshama was intertwined with the essence of Lot. And we know what allowed Rava to come then to this world. Nashkenu yayin gam halayla. The daughter of Lot gave Lot to drink, and the eldest daughter lived with him, and he didn't know what was flying. And then the next night, the younger one comes in, and also layadav shechva v'kuma. So that means Rava came to this world through yayin, and therefore Rava had this inexplicable connection to wine. But because he came into this world through wine in somewhat of an inappropriate way, so therefore, in order to be masaking that, he wants to rectify the concept of wine, and he always teaches the mitzvahs that are connected to wine in order to be masaking the fact that he came to this world through nashkenu yayin. So therefore, Amar Rava, Mechayev Inish L'Basume B'Puraya. Amar Rava, a person should drink a lot of wine Erev Pesach. Amar Rava, Yayin Yisamach L'Vav Enosh. So what do we see from here? We see that if an Amoira says a statement, it's not random, it's not arbitrary. There's a specific reason why he's the one who makes that statement. That's why Rava is connected in Mechayev Inish. So in the same train of thought, let's try to apply that to this statement. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Brei Rav Shmuel bar Shilas, Mishmei de Rav. Okay, Mar Rabbi Sai. Let us introduce this with the following idea. We know that one of the things of Megillas Esther is Mechias Amalek. After all, Haman was from Agag, from Amalek, and they destroyed Haman. Haman was hanged, and the 10 sons were hanged. And in fact, it says, they did not take their spoils. Why? Because it was the property of Amalek. You can't be nene from the property of Amalek. Very interesting. I'm going to tell you a remez nifla. You're going to be so happy after this year, you're not going to know what to do with yourself. Listen to this. How many psukim in the Chumash talk about Amalek? So you have, at the end of Beshalach, that we're going to learn on Purim day, Amalek, we have 9 psukim at the end of Beshalach. Normally you have to learn a minimum of 10 psukim, but this is the exception to the rule. So you have 9 psukim in Beshalach, and then 3 psukim in Kiseitze. That what does it say in Kiseitze? No. How does it start in Kiseitze? Zachayeres. How many psukim? 3 psukim. So how many psukim the Torah speak about Amalek? 12. How many words in Parshas Beshalach about Amalek? 119 words. You could count it up. Or you can take my word for it, whichever one you want. 119 words. And how many words in Kiseitze? 47. A total of 166. Marav Rabbi say, you know how many psukim in Megillas Esther? 166 psukim in Megillas Esther. Keneged the number of words in the Chumash that speak about Amalek. Says the Rokeach, the Risha and the Rokeach. 119 in Beshalach, 47 in Kiseitze. The psukim in Megillas Esther correspond perfectly to the number of the words in the Chumash. Okay, that's just, to whet your appetite, just to get started. Okay, let's come back to Amalek. So at the end of Beshalach, look at number 4. Vayomer Hashem el Moshe, Kisoiv zois zikaroin basefer. Write this as a memory in a book, V'sim ba'oznei Yehoshua, and place it in the ears of Yehoshua. So right off the bat we see there's a written law about Amalek and there's an oral law. There's a K'soiv zois zikaroin basefer. There's what has to be written, and then there's the oral law of Moshe Kibel Torah Misinai and Masara li Yehoshua of V'sim ba'oznei Yehoshua. Ki machai emche ezecher Amalek. I will destroy Amalek. What do you mean I? But in Kiseitze it says Timcha, you're going to destroy Amalek. So, Shnei Ksuvim Habam Ke'achad, right? Shnei Ksuvim Achishim Zeh. Who's going to destroy Amalek? Is it God or is it us? Okay. Vayiven Moshe Mazech Vayikra Shmai Adonai Nisi. Vayomer Ki Yad Al Kes Ya Milchamal Adonai Ba'Amalek Midardar. Ki Yad Al Kes Ka. God raises his hand. By the way, Purim could be Yodaled Ki Yad Al Kes Ka Tesvav. Yad is, God lifts up his hand. Al Kes Ka on the throne of Hashem. Says Rashi, wait a second. Yad, Kes, it should be Kisei. Ka, it should be Yud Ke Vav Ke. Says Rashi, on the second line, Umahu Kes, v'loi nemar Kisei, v'yaf Hashem nechlak l'chetziai. Nishba HaKadosh Baruch Hu, she'ein shemoi shalem. God swears his name is not complete. V'ein kisei shalem, his throne is not complete. Ad sheyimcha shmoi shel Amalek, until the name of Amalek is wiped out kulai. Okay, but as soon as Amalek is wiped out and the name is complete and the kisa is complete, fine. Let's try to understand what is the meaning of this all-out war against Amalek. Why is Amalek so much worse than all the other nations of the world? We know the nations that occupied Canaan. We have a mitzvah loisachaya kol neshama, and nevertheless, as rotten and despicable as they are, ketayavas, the Canaanim, we're not allowed to do. But as despicable as they are, you go into Eretz Yisrael and you wipe them off. If they have a nice picture on the wall, so you take down the picture and you can hang it in your dining room. And if they have a goldfish, you can bring it home and give it to your kid. And if they have a little rabbit, so you take it back. You don't have to completely eradicate every vestige of memory of the Girgashi and the Prizi and the Yevusi. It's just the halacha. You got to wipe them out. They're rotten people, and they can't remain leisachaya kol neshama. And yet, when it comes to Amalek, there's a mitzvah besides eradicating Amalek and taking their lives. But timcha zecher Amalek. You need to destroy the memory of Amalek, which means Chazal say even their animals. By Shol, it says you have to be machrim the behemoths. By the Zayin Amamim, you could let their cows live, you could let their sheep live, but not by Amalek. You know, when you were a kid, did your teacher ever say, okay, everybody by recess, write Gergashi on the bottom of your shoe, and kick it out, wipe it out, write Prizi, write, of course not. There's no mitzvah to obliterate. You want to say Prizi all day long, say Prizi. Say it 1,000 times. Knock yourself dead. Saying, Yevusi. But when it comes to Amalek, you're not supposed to mention Amalek. You have to eradicate the memory of Amalek. How is Amalek much worse than any other nation? And the basic reason is that Amalek's hatred is more than anti-Semitic. They don't just hate us. Who they really hate is they hate God. It's a war against God. The Ramban says, at the end of B'Shalach, look at number 7, V'tam ha'oinesh, the way we just expressed the question, that's the way Rabbi Chanan writes it in the Kovetz Ha'aros in Siman Yud. But the Ramban says like this, V'tam ha'oinesh shenenash Amalek yoiser mikol ha'amim, because all the other nations, they heard of God's wonders, and they feared, and they had some Yira Shamayim. They trembled. Va'amalek ba memerchak kimizgaber al Hashem. Amalek came from afar as if to attack God. And therefore it says about Amalek, V'loi yarei Elokim. It's not only that he hates us, he hates the Ribbono Shel Olam. Abarbanel adds that Kika Hashem tzorei lamim nasa yadai v'nishbal kisei lemar milchama l'Hashem ba'Amalek. That even though, very interesting, we have a mitzvah to eradicate Amalek, but God will finish up the job. Why? Because the Amalek's war is not only with us. Amalek's war is against the throne of the Ribbono Shel Olam. You see, the Malbim says that there are two really chalakim in what Amalek is trying to do. And there are two dimensions of it. In the open dimension of Amalek, it looks like Amalek is just your run-of-the-mill, garden variety anti-Semite. He doesn't like Jews. But on the deeper level of it, Amalek hates God. And because the Jewish people represent God, and we are the ambassadors of God, so the closest they could come to attacking the Machon, what are they going to do? They're going to build a ladder and go up to Shamayim? So the closest they could come is to attack the Jewish people. So to speak, the revealed aspect of what Amalek brings to the table is a hatred to the Jewish people. The deeper aspect of what Amalek is trying to accomplish is it's an all-out attack on God. And therefore the Malbim says, there's a Torah Shebechsav on what has to be done to Amalek, and there's a Torah Shebal Peh what has to be done to Amalek. The Torah Shebechsav is Kisoiv Zoisi Karoin Basefer. Write in the book that you will obliterate Amalek for what they try to do to you. But V'sim Ba'oznei Yehoshua, what you need to give over to Yehoshua orally is the deeper meaning of what Amalek is trying to accomplish, and that is they hate God. And therefore tell Yehoshua, the Torah Shebal Peh, I will destroy them, because after all, they're after me, they're not just after you. The way Rabbi Chanan articulates this in the Kovetz Ha'aros is that Amalek, I want to read to you the words of Rabbi Chanan. He says, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, the 7th line, number 10. U'lechairahi chida sesuma. It would seem this is a sealed riddle. Avo pisrain hachida hazois, the interpretation of this riddle, mefurash b'kasav, is explicit in the pasuk. Milchama lashem ba'Amalek. It's a war of God against Amalek. Hainu she'Amalek halach lilchaim neged HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Amalek is coming to attack Hashem. V'ilu hayachal asay sulama isalas rakian. If Amalek could make a ladder to climb up to heaven, haya oisakin, he would. But because Amalek was not able to, Arach Milchama Neged Yisrael. So Amalek did his next best option. He made a war against the Jewish people. Shem avdei Hashem, v'hayu holchim lekabel ol malchus shamayim. V'im kein kol cheftzoi hoya loy lahanasai. He wasn't doing for his benefit. In other words, Amalek didn't need our land or our territory because he didn't attack us on our land. We were in the Midbar. It's not like this was a military battle that Amalek had against us. Amalek wasn't doing this for strategic reasons. He wasn't afraid we would attack him. He was doing it out of pure malice to God himself. In fact, Chazal say they would take their arla and they would throw it klape shamayim as if they were saying, we're attacking Kiviyachal. Okay, so this is the concept of Amalek. Amalek does not accept the authority and the control of the master of the universe. So I want to share with you a riddle. A riddle. This is a riddle of the Ben Ish Chai, Chacham Yosef Chaim, and the Ben Ish Chai in the Sefer Ateras Teferes asks the following riddle. The riddle is, what did Haman see that he decided to come attack Klal Yisrael? And the answer to the riddle, which makes the riddle all the more enigmatic, was the following. My grandfather took away 3. He left them with 4. He measured himself up and he was equal, and therefore he attacked. My grandfather took away 3. He left him with 4. He measured himself up and he was equal, and therefore he attacked. Okay, so I think you're barking up the right tree. My grandfather Amalek took away 3. What are the 3? The Aleph from the Kisei and the Vav K from the Ka. Case Ka. He left him with 4 Case Ka. Kaf Samach Yud Hey. The Gematria of Case Ka, Kaf Samach is 80, Ka is 15, 95. Haman is Gematria 95. He measured himself up and he was equal, and therefore he decided to attack. Meaning, the deeper meaning is, when you strip the Kisei of the Aleph and you strip the Yud K of the Vav K, you're left with Haman. Haman rears his ugly head when the Aleph is removed and the Vav Hey is removed. So what you get, in other words, if you see Kisei Yud K Vav K and you remove the Aleph and you remove the Vav K, when that has been done, you're left with a Haman. By the way, if you think a little bit, what letters did Amalek remove? Aleph, Vav, Hey. Well, says the Ben Ish Chai, says the Roy Keach, Ki Bachar Hashem B'Tzion, when God will choose Tzion, Iva L'Moishavlai. Iva is Aleph, Vav, Hey. He will restore L'Moishavlai. He'll restore the Iva. He'll restore the Aleph to the Case and restore the Vav K to the Yud K, and he'll make it Kisei Hashem. Okay, so this is an amazing thing we're seeing, that Haman rears his ugly head when the Aleph of Kisei is removed and the Vav K is removed. Well, there's a fantastic sefer, an amazing sefer of a Kadmon, one of the great masters of Ramazim. The name of the sefer is Bris Kahunas Olam, and he says like this: Case Ka is 95. 95 is Haman. But let's add those 2 words to that pasuk. Go back to the pasuk. Look back at number 4. Milchama Lashem. Milchama is 123, and Lashem is 56, 179. If you add 179 to Case Ka, Mordechai, 274. Mordechai. So Case Ka is Haman. But if you add Milchama Lashem, which is 179, to Case Ka, that gets you 274, that gets you Mordechai. So you see how even though here we're dealing with the Chumash, this is Bashalach, this is well before the story of Purim happened, but the whole episode is already alluded to. It's all planned out. The Case Ka is the Haman, Milchama Lashem, Case Ka is the Mordechai. It's Hafla V'Fela. And everybody knows, it's there's a Tosfos in Masechta Brachas and Av Gimel, that even though Tosfos doesn't side with this pshat, but Tosfos brings down the pshat of the Machzor Vitri, and Arizal goes with this pshat, that when we say every day, Yehei Shmei Rabbah, the real meaning is not like we said in the beginning of the shir, that when there's a hey in the name is Rabbah. You know that, right? The real meaning is, according to the Master Ritchie,
Complete.
Yehei Shem Ka Rabba. The Shem Yud Kei should be made Rabba, should be made Yud Kei Vav Kei. That's the meaning according to many Rishonim and Yehei Shmei Rabba. Yehei Shmei. Shmei means Shem Ka. The Shem Ka should be made Rabba, should be made Yud Kei Vav Kei. By the way, the Gra in the Divrei Eliyahu writes that all of the characters of the Purim story are already alluded to in the pasuk of Machon Maggid Harakiah Amalek. How's that? All the heroes who ever wipe out Amalek are always alluded to in Emcha. So the first time around you have Aaron, Moshe, Chur, and Hashem. Right? Because O Moshe, Aaron, V'chor Aluhu, Rosh HaGivah. Now, the second time around is Esther, Mordechai, Charvoina, Hashem. But my name is Daniel, and that is Hasach, so I like to get Hasach in there also, right? So Esther, Mordechai, Charvoina, and Hasach. You know, we have to get Charvoina in there also, you know. We say in Shoshanas Yaakov, V'gam Charvoina Zachor Latov. So what's V'gam Charvoina? Say V'charvoina, what's V'gam? So Kikain Diyana says, Charvoina is really a bad guy. He was one of the Shivas Sarisei Achashverosh in the beginning of the Megillah. He only said one good word. Gam hinei ha'etz asher. He said one word, Gam. So V'gam Charvoina, the V'gam of Charvoina is Zachor Latov. Anyway, so they're all alluded to. Okay, now fasten your seatbelts. Here comes the good part. Morav Rabbi Isai. We know that Esther Baruch HaKodesh Nemra. And really, if you appreciate this, you see Mamish Torah Min HaShamayim. Does anybody know? How many times does Haman's name appear in Megillah Esther? 54 times. Haman's name appears in Megillah Esther. Okay, what's the significance of that? Well, we know that the 54 is Midas Hadin. After all, V'yachar, it says, V'games hagoy asher ya'avoidu dan anoichi. Dalid Nun is Midas Hadin. On the other hand, the Dalid Nun is in the middle of the Shem Hashem. On the right hand, you have the Aleph. On the left hand, you have the Yud. The Aleph is the Shem Ekia. The Yud is the Yud Kei Vav Kei. So it's the combination of Midas Hadin and Midas Harachman. 54 times Haman's name is in the Megillah. How many times is Esther's name in the Megillah? 54 times. So you say, yeah, but isn't Haman's name one more time? Memuchan. Yeah, but Esther's also one more time. Hadassah. Esther's also. How many times is Zeresh in the Megillah? 4 times. So hey, that's not fair. So then 54 in Haman and 4 in Zeresh, that's 58. How many times is Mordechai in the Megillah? 58 times Mordechai in the Megillah. So everything is Zeh Le'umazeh. 54 Hamans, 54 Esthers. 1 Memuchan, 1 Hadassah. 4 Zeresh, and the 54 Hamans, 58 Mordechai. So how many times is Haman's name in the Megillah? 54. Emche, Aleph, Mem, Ches. Hey, Aleph is 1, Mem is 40, 41, plus 8, 49. Hey, 54. Macha, you know what I'm going to wipe out? Emche, the 54 times Haman's name is in the Megillah. You add up. Aseres Bnei Haman. You add up all of the letters of the 10 sons of Haman. How many letters? 30. Come on. 54 letters! 54 letters! So, Kimachai Emche. I'm going to wipe out the 54 times Haman's name is in Megillah. I'm going to wipe out the 54 letters of the Aseres Bnei Haman. According to the Reikeach in the Tefillah, Bnei, Mordechai, the Esther, B'Shushan Abira. The Gra says 54 words in Bnei, Mordechai, the Esther. Bnei, Mordechai, the Esther, B'Shushan Abira. The Goin says there are 54 words. Mamish Hafel. So Klal Yisrael is in Mitzrayim. And Moshe Rabbeinu is saying there's a lot of Midas Hadin over here. V'yacha, right? V'games hagoy asher ya'avoidu dan anoichi, 54. So Moshe Rabbeinu says, Shlach na B'yad tishlach. No is nun aleph. Yad is yud daled. You put the nun aleph and the yud daled. That's aleph daled nun yud. You know. But Haman was able to extract. He's always able to take out of the Shem Hashem the Midas Hadin, the 54. But we try to combine it together. Shlach nun aleph together with the yud daled. Okay. So it comes out like this. You know, there's a major battle going on in the Megillah, whether it's consciously, subconsciously. It's the war of the worlds, the war of the names of God. We know that the Rebbeinu Shalom's name, primarily the Shem HaGadol, is Yud Kei Vav Kei. And Yud Kei Vav Kei, forward is Midas HaRachamim. Now, there are 12 months a year. How many different permutations are there of the Yud Kei Vav Kei? So it used to be the big Mekubalim knew, and now all you need to do is buy an art scroll Sfard Siddur. The Ashkenaz, you know, they weren't Zoche yet, but in the Sfard Siddur, we see that there are 12 permutations of the Yud Kei Vav Kei. There are 12 different combinations of the Yud Kei Vav Kei. Nisan being Yud Kei Vav Kei forward. Yismechu HaShamayim B'Sagel HaOretz. However, the month of Adar is Yud Kei Vav Kei backwards. What's that? Hey Vav Hey Yud. Yud Kei Vav Kei backwards. What's the difference between Yud Kei Vav Kei forward and Yud Kei Vav Kei backward? Yud Kei Vav Kei forward is open miracles, rachamim, gemurim. Yud Kei Vav Kei backward is midas hateva, hester panim. That is why the battle between Esther and Haman is Esther always tries to invoke the Yud Kei Vav Kei in the correct sequence. And Rabbi Isai, she does it Rashi Tevis. You see, when you do it Rashi Tevis, that's the typical way to do it. That's Rachamim Gemurim. So, for example, Esther says, Yavoi Hamelch v'Haman Hayom Yud Kei Vav Kei forward Rashi Tevis. Not Haman. V'chol zeh einenu shayveli. They're wrong. What can I tell you? I'm telling you, you know. That they have it a different way, right? They have Tammuz. I know. Every year somebody asks me that. What can I tell you? This is. I can only tell you the facts, you know. So what does Haman say? Haman says v'chol zeh einenu shayve li. Zeh ends in a hey, einenu ends in a vav, shayve ends in a hey, li ends in a yud. Soifei tevois Yud Kei Vav Kei backward. So that's the battle between Esther and Haman. Esther is Yavai Amelch V'Haman Hayoim, and Haman is V'chol Zeh Einenu Shayve Li. By the way, why did Haman pick the month of Adar? Haman says, I'm staying as far away from the month of Nisan as possible. Nisan is Yud Kei Vav Kei, forward. God is most apparent. It's a month of open miracles for the Jewish people. I'm staying away from that month. I'm going to the end of the year. The end of the year, God is Behester Panim, He's hidden, and God's name is alluded to in the Tzeirufei Yosiyos backward. So, by the way, when Esther wants to destroy Haman, so what she wants to do is, she uses a very interesting trick. Esther says the following words: Ki ra'ah, ki cholsa elav hara me'es hamelech. Ki cholsa elav hara. Soifei tevois. Ki cholsa elav hara. Yud Kei Vav Kei b'soifei tevois. Because what she needs to do is she needs to get rachamim for Klal Yisrael, but she can't have rachamim gemurim because then Haman's going to get off the hook. So she puts it b'soifei tevois to get some din on Haman. By the way, this comes from the Sefer Kavayasha, Rav Shmuel Kadenover, Alpida Arizal. So there's a lot going on here in Megillas Esther. We see, what is Haman? Haman is looking to chop up the name of Hashem. Ki yad al keis ka. Take the Yud Kei Vav Kei, chop it up. Haman wants Yud Kei Vav Kei to be backward. He picks the month of Adar. He says, V'chol zeh einenu shoyveli. He's Nun Daled. He takes out of the Aleph Dal Nun Yud the letters Nun Daled. But you know what? Haman wasn't entirely rotten to the core. Because we see, Lamaisi, he had some nachas from the Einiklach. Who are the Einiklach? So Gemara says in Sanhedrin, on Daf Tzadik Vavam Beis, Tanu Rabbanan, Naaman ger Toshav haya. Naaman was a ger Toshav. Nivuzradin ger Tzedek haya. Nivuzradin, you know the guy who shechted Jews and the blood formed rivers, that's how the chief executioner, he was a righteous ger. Mibnei banav shel Sisra lamdu Torah b'Yerushalayim. The descendants of Sisera learned Torah in Yerushalayim. So it's people tell me, yeah, I learned many years ago in Yerushalayim. It could be your Rebbe was, from Sisera. Mibnei banav shel Sancherev limdu Torah barabim. The grandchildren of Sancherev taught Torah publicly. Who? Shmaya v'Avtalyon. Mibnei banav shel Haman. The grandchildren of Haman limdu Torah b'Bnei Brak. They're learning in Koilel and Bnei Brak. Who is their Zayda? Haman. They don't write down the Shidduch resume. They write the other side. They don't write Mitzad Ha'av or Mitzad Ha'em. We don't know which one. But very interesting, if you look in Shas, it identifies B'nei Banav Shel Sancherev Limdu Torah Barabim. Who? Shmaya v'Avtalyon. But the Gemara doesn't tell us B'nei Banav Shel Haman who they are. That would be too dangerous. And yet, if you look in the Ein Yaakov's edition of this Gemara, the Ein Yaakov identifies who the descendant of Haman was. Let's look at this. Zok the Gemara, Mibnei Banav Shel Haman Limdu Torah B'Bnei Brak Umanu Rav Shmuel Bar Shilas. Rav Shmuel Bar Shilas, he was a descendant of Haman.
So Shilas was a son?
Doesn't say he was a son. Shilas was the son of Rav Shmuel. He was a descendant.
The grandson, the Bar.
It doesn't say he was Haman was the grandfather. It means he was a descendant. Okay. He was a descendant of Haman. In his Yichus Brifel, somewhere on there, Haman was there. Now that's amazing. Rav Shmuel Bar Shilas, the great Amoira.
No wonder he didn't want people to be
The great Amoira. The great Amoira, Shmuel Bar Shilas, his grandfather was Haman. Now, what do we know about Rosh Shmuel Bar Shilas? Not much. Like, what did he do for a living? Where he sold used cars? What did Rosh Shmuel Bar Shilas do for a living? We know one Gemara about what Rosh Shmuel Bar Shilas did for a living. The Gemara says in Bava Basra Daf Ches Alameis, Umatzdike harabim kikoichavim li'olam v'ed. And the righteous will be like stars forever. Who are the righteous? Elu melamdei tinoikos. These are the rabbeim of children. Kigoin man. For example, who? Who is the quintessential Cheder Rebbe? Amar Rav. Rav says, let me tell you. Kigoin Rav Shmuel Bar Shilas. By the way, to watch kids, you needed the energy like to come from a guy like Haman. Not every typical person could be a Rebbe and a Cheder, Kigoin Rav Shmuel Bar Shilas. The Rav Ashkechel Rav Shmuel Bar Shilas. Rav found Rav Shmuel Bar Shilas. To have a koi beginsa. And Rav Shmuel Bar Shilas was in the garden. He was taking a breather in the garden. Amar Le, Rav said, Shav Kasei Lamnusa. You're playing hooky today, Rebbe. What happened? You're a Rebbe. Amar Le, Otleisar Shnendel Chazili. It's been 13 years that I haven't seen the garden. This is my first break in 13 years. He said, what do you mean first break? He didn't have a cell phone. He turned off his phone. He didn't bring it with him. Otherwise he wouldn't say I didn't break for 13 years. That means he did not divert, he did not bring any distractions. He watched and he taught the children faithfully for 13 years. And even now that he needed to take a break, he's still thinking about them. So more Rabbi say, who was the greatest Rebbe of all time for children? The Anikel of Haman, Rosh Shmuel Bar Shilas. Why do you think he chose this profession? Why didn't he teach adults? Agra de Perka? Why dafka kinderlach? There's no doubt. It must be that Chazal tell us, Hakol kol Yaakov v'hayadayim midei Esav. That bisman that the Kol Yaakov is heard, ein hayadayim midei Esav shaltos. But if you know the Chazal don't just say any Kol Yaakov. It's bisman shel tinoikos mitzavtzivin b'koilon, then Esav is powerless. If you look in Bereshis Rabbah Parsha Samachay, look at number 21. Uvishash hu mitzavtzev b'koiloi. When Yaakov Avinu chirps with his voice, ein hayadayim midei Esav. Ein yedei Esav sholtos. the hands of Esav do not have dominion. Amar Rav Kana loy amdu filoi sofin ba'olam kevilam ben ba'ar u'chavinomas hagardi niskansu kol edichom etzlo amaloi tamer shani chom bezag lumazu. Could we overpower them? Amar luchu b'chazru abatik nesiz abatim in Rosh Hashanah. Imat sasam sham tinoikois mitzaftzefim b'koilon ein atem yicholam lizdavig b'hem. When the little kinderlach are chirping with their voice, then we're guaranteed to be protected. So, of course, Rav Shmuel Bar Shilas, who is a descendant of Haman, and obviously his whole life he worked to be Mesakein, what Haman tried to do to Klal Yisrael. He's always looking to protect the Jewish people from the Yedei Esav. So what profession does Rav Shmuel Bar Shilas choose? He's a Malamdei Tinoikos, to overcome, to overpower, to protect the Jewish people from the Yedei Esav. So you can imagine that every year when the month of Adar came, Rav Shmuel Bar Shilas was probably very, very happy. Why was he so happy? Because the month that his Zayda Haman tried to select to destroy the Jewish people, because it was a month that the Yud Kei Vav Kei was backward, and Klal Yisrael and Ahapechu was able to turn it and revert it and restore the Yud Kei Vav Kei back to the Yismach LaShamayim, the Sagi Al-Haaretz. You could imagine the simcha Rav Shmuel Bar Shilas had. Now Rav Shmuel, when he had his little kid, you could imagine that the avodah of this mishpacha was probably always to focus on the Yud Kei Vav Kei. Because Haman always tries to uproot the Yud Kei Vav Kei. He tries to make it Kiyad al Kis Ka. Tries to make the Yud Kei Vav Kei backwards. Tries to make the Adnush 54. So you know what? Shmuel named his kid Shilas. Shivisi Hashem Lenegdi Tamid. That Rizal says. Yeah, you got it. Shilas stands for Shivisi Hashem Lenegdi Tamid. Now look in the Mishnah Brura.
Bar means son of.
Yeah.
So how did he name his son? Son of.
Just his father.
Shmuel couldn't have done it.
His father. By the way, if you look in the Mishnah Brura, Shivisi, the first halacha in Shulchan Aruch. The first halacha, what is the first Ramah? Haga, Shivisi Hashem Lenegdi Tamid. What does the Mishnah Brura say? Mishnah Brura says more than just walking around feeling you're in the presence of Hashem. The Mishnah Brura literally says a person should imagine the letters Yud, Kei, Vav, Kei in front of them. Now it takes mental exercise to be able, a person has the ability to, as part of meditation, to close their eyes and see in their mind's eye a letter. You could close your eyes and see a Yud. You could close your eyes and see a Hey, a Yud, Kei. Person is able to train themselves to see in their mind's eye Yud, Kei, Vav, Kei. To do that with your eyes open is another step. But that's the mitzvah of Shivisi Hashem Lenegdi Tamid. And you should do it, the Mishnah Brura says, nakud, with nekudais. Which nekudais? Yira. Is there Mishnah Brura Chelek Aleph there? Over there, right right behind you. He's on the other side of the Beis Medrash, right over there, Right over there, right there. He's running? He's got it? Oh, he knew it. You see, Shkoyach, Tiskal Mitzvahs.
He gets to the Kudus one.
Says the Mishnah Brura. Kasu b'shem Harizal, sheyitzayer shem havaya tamid neged einav. And it should be nakud yira, with a chirik under the yud, and a shva under the hey, and a kamatz under the vav, and a hey. That is the side of Shivisi Hashem Lenegdi Tamid. So Haman, who fought his whole life, Kiyad al Keska, to destroy the name of Hashem Chas v'Shalom, to turn it backward. His family worked to be Mesakein, the Chisaron of Haman, and therefore, what was the name of Rab Shmuel Bar Shilas? Shivisi Hashem Lenegdi Tamid. And what was his profession? He was Malamdei Tinoikos, to be able to counteract the Yedei Esav. And that is why, if you look in Shas, Omar Rabbi Yehuda Braid Rav Shmuel Bar Shilas Mishmei de Rav. So you say, how did Rav get in there? Say, Rav? Of course Rav. Rav is the only one who knows the tenacity of Shmuel bar Shilas, how dedicated he was. Rav was the one who caught Rav Shmuel bar Shilas in the garden, and Rav Shmuel bar Shilas said, I haven't taken a break in 13 years. So Rav says, my goodness, look how the month of Adar has completely turned around. The descendants of Haman thought the month of Adar was a month of misfortune for Klal Yisrael. But I can tell you firsthand, I'm the one who saw the anacle of Haman. He's somebody who comes from Shilas, Shivis Hashem Yutamid, and he's a Malamdei Tinoikos, and he's so dedicated, he has completely and successfully overturned the month of Adar to be Mishanichnas Adar Mesimcha. But one second. Amar Rav Yehuda, Braid Rav Shmuel bar Shilas, Mishmei Darav. So Rav I get. Rav is the one who has the first-hand experience. And I understand Rav Shmuel bar Shilas, Shivisi Hashem Lenegdi Tamid. But let's think for a moment. You know, what did Rav Shmuel bar Shilas name his son? Yehuda. I guarantee you it's not a coincidence that he named his kid Yehuda. Why? Because the Shloh HaKadosh writes, look at the name Yehuda, V'tira and Niflais. If you look at the name of Yehuda, you'll see wonders. What are the wonders? Yehuda is Yud Kei Vav Kei forward. So you say, come on, but what about the Dalet? Says the Shloh HaKadosh, God's throne, his kisei, has 3 legs. Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov. Yeah, but a 3-legged chair can't stand. The 4th leg, the Dalet, is David. Before David comes to the scene, Hashem's throne cannot stand. Ki bachar Hashem b'tzion iva l'moishavlai. David HaMelech holds up the kisei of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That is why Shevet Yehuda, it says Ruvain was born, Shimon was born, Levi was born. But by Yehuda it says Vatamoid Miledes. Tamid is Lashon Amida. God's throne now has Amida. The name Yehuda is Yud Kei Vav Kei, and the Dalet represents David, the Regel Revi that holds up the Kisei HaKavod. So when Rav Shmuel bar Shilas had his son, and he made a bris for his son, and he's celebrating the fact that his father worked his whole life on Shivisi Hashem Lenegdi Tamid, and he's a descendant of Haman, who was able to rearrange the month of Adar from a backward month to Yismucha Hashemayim Sagalaretz. Guess what name he gave his kid? He gave his kid the name Yehuda. Omar Rav Yehuda, Braid Rav Shmuel bar Shilas, Mishmei Derav. Mishanichnas Adar Marbim B'Simcha. That is why he is the Baal HaMemra. He is the one who saw firsthand how Haman's downfall was completely turned around, was reverted, was nishapech. Who better than Rabbi Yehuda, Braid, Rav Shmuel bar Shilas, Mishnei Derav, Rabbi Isai, Mishanechnas Adar, Marbim B'Simcha.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.